Any brother, everybody has a copy? This spare one here. You got- this one. Alhamdulillah, salatu wassalam ala rasulillah. Today is the 24th of Jumaadaa, 1443 after Hijri, Wednesday the 26th of January 2022. Today's topic is on menstruation and postpartum bleeding. We've passed the notes around. If you can just hold on to them for now, we're going to inshallah start with the book and then we'll use the sheet. So I will begin. Menstruation is the well-known bleeding that women have. In Islamic law, there's no established maximum or minimum time limit that is determined by what is customarily found among the women.
Right. Bismillah, alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa mawala. Brother, if you could come forward, I mean, unless you've got COVID problem, come forward. It's not sitting in the back, is not correct. Very important to sit in the front. Like if you haven't got a notes, put your hands up, please. If you don't have a handout, please.
I think everyone has.
If you haven't got one, I'll give you one. Fine. So this is the first definition of menstruation. And this is the one. Very good. Right. Onto the sheet, it gives you more definition. So the menstruation, it says there, is a dark, thick, smelly, discharged blood during women's state of health when she reaches her puberty. Not due to disease, giving birth, or breaking the hymen. This blood comes regularly at a certain time every month and keeps flowing for a certain period. There is no specific age at which the menstruation stops. That's the full definition of the haid. This definition of this haid implicates the following. Number one, it has a dark color. So it's different from the normal color. It could also be the original color, the blood red, could be as well yellow, could be the plus muddy color as well, intermediate color between black and white. All of those as well can be sometimes the color of the blood. But normally it is the case, it is dark. It is thick, so the normal blood normally is thin. It is smelly, that means it's got a particular smell, different from the smell of the blood. It begins when the woman reaches her puberty. There is no specific age for puberty. So you have to understand that there is no specific age, but normally it is between 9 and 15. The women, they reach their puberty maybe before the men. And also it is discharged during women's state of health. It is not discharged due to disease, giving birth, or breaking the hymen. It comes regularly every month at a certain time, which differs from one woman to another. And point number 7, normally the blood keeps flowing until the end of the menstruation period, normally. That means now this is not normal. We're going to talk about the abnormal cases. Normally the blood keeps discharging, but some women, they experience, for example, drop, 2 drops, 3 drops, and then the blood stops the following day, drop, 2 drop, or even a day. And then after a day, she will be drop with 2 drops. All of that will be discussed, inshallah, so we understand in such abnormal cases what the woman should do. Point number 8. The length of the menstruation period varies from one woman to another, and there is no authentic proof that states a maximum or a minimum length of time for the menses. The Ahnaf, for example, they make it 15 days. We don't have a proof for that. Whether it's 15, 20 days, 5 days, but only the woman determines the length of the time of her menses. It's according to her blood. Normally, it is between 6 and 7 days, which is called the predominant. It's called predominant because 6 or 7 days, customary period of the woman. Number 9, no specific age at which women starts menstruation. Normally, it is the case between 45 and 50, and that's when the women stop giving birth to children, to be pregnant. But some women, they are even after 50. Some of them before 45, but normally it is the case. It doesn't take place while the woman is pregnant. So if the woman, she experiences blood during her pregnancy, she should disregard this blood. It's not menses. I'm going to ask the doctor, have you ever experienced a woman that she would menstruate during her pregnancy time? That is very important.
It's the definition of menstruation.
Menstruation, not bleeding.
It's not the menstruation.
The menstruation is the break of the, no. Okay. I'm just saying this because there is some respected scholars, like our Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen, rahimahullah, said if this woman, she is experiencing blood during the time of her cycle, let's say the beginning of the month, and during the pregnancy of hers, at the beginning of the month, she's experiencing the blood, that could be an exception. But I'm just saying it's impossible for a woman to have menses. If the menses, what we talk about, the breaking of the egg and all of that, no, it doesn't take place. And that's why I said, according to our shuyukh as well, Shaykh Al-Albani says it doesn't take place while the woman is pregnant. And point number 11, doesn't normally take place while the woman is breastfeeding. This is normally the case, but sometimes she does. Breastfeeding is different from pregnancy. But normally it is the case when she's breastfeeding, there is no menses. But maybe she will experience. But as in pregnancy, no way. There is consensus, that's the last point, upon the impurity of menstruation blood. The normal blood, if you remember, we said is a controversial. But the correct opinion is what? It's pure. Human blood is pure. But menses blood is completely impure, meaning there's no difference among the scholars. It's impure. Right, so this is now the definition of the haid. Now we go to the definition of the postnatal. The book.
Postpartum bleeding is a bleeding that occurs due to giving birth. Its maximum length is 40 days. Salama radiallahu anha said, during the lifetime of the Prophet ﷺ, the postpartum women would wait for 40 days. If the blood stopped flowing before 40 days, the woman should make ghusl and purify herself. If it continues beyond 40 days, she should make ghusl for the completion of 40 days and be considered pure.
Right. If you flick the page on the top, says, what did you say that? Post, is it this post, what is it called?
Postpartum.
Postpartum, postnatal, post-childbirth bleeding, all of it the same meaning. So I've called it here post-childbirth bleeding. That means the after the childbirth, the blood. Okay, the post-childbirth bleeding. PCBB. That's not a petrol station. This is basically the abbreviation of post-childbirth bleeding. PCBB. And it's an Arabic nifas. So it says there, the full definition, this is the blood which occurs after the birth of a child, regardless if the child survived the birth or not. This definition implies the following. Number 1, this bleeding normally begins straight after or with birth, but it may start 2 or 3 days before birth as long as it carries on bleeding until after birth. Do you understand that? So if there was some blood before the birth and that is linked to the blood after the birth, we consider that blood to be from the postnatal, post-childbirth bleeding. But if there is a time gap, so she bleeded before birth and then she stopped, and then after that she started, after the childbirth, she started bleeding, we don't consider that blood to be what? Part of the child. It has to be linked. Also, if a miscarriage takes place, then the bleeding is regarded PCBB, post-childbirth bleeding, regardless of the age of the fetus. So whether the child came out the first week, 2 weeks, if there's blood, we consider that to be what? Postnatal. This bleeding has no minimum duration. Point number 3, it could stop right after the birth. So it could be for 1 day. Remember, imagine that it's a fetus for one week is old. The blood just came 1 day and then stopped. That's it, it's 1 day. So there is no minimum duration for it. Point number 4, the maximum duration for the bleeding is 40 days. This is the hadith we just read, hadith Salama, 40 days. That's the maximum. Now, the color of the blood is almost like the color of the menstruation blood. Thick, smelly, dark. Number 6, the sign for which the woman knows the end of her bleeding is for the blood to stop. Finally, there is consensus upon the impurity of post-childbirth. So the blood here is impure, and there's no difference among the scholars. Fine. Now we're going to talk about the book, and then we'll return back to the paper. Flick page to page number 1. Further.
Okay, what's prohibited for the menstruating and post-childbirth bleeding women? All the actions discussed earlier prohibited for the one who is not in a state of ablution are also prohibited for menstruating and postpartum bleeding women. However, the following additionally are prohibited.
Okay, before we talk about the additional, I would like you to share with me what are the things which are prohibited on the one who is sexually defiled, janaba, because we're going to add it to these things. What? So he says, whatever is prohibited upon the person who is in janaba, sexual defilement, is prohibited also on the women, on their menses, or they're experiencing the PCBB. Now, further, salah. So salah is number 1. They cannot pray. Yes? Reading Quran. That correct? Touching the Quran. Okay. So reading the Quran, she said, is that prohibited upon the person who is in janaba? No. You're going to deprive me from making adhkar and saying Bismillah. Touch the Quran is different. So touching the Quran is prohibited upon, we said the difference among the scholars, touching the Quran is not allowed, but for the menstruating women, she is to touch the Quran if she needs to do so. So this is where we differ from the janaba. So we say that is whatever is prohibited upon the sexual defiled person, janaba, is prohibited onto the women who are on their menses or PCBB, except for what? Touching the Quran. Touching the Quran for the menstruating women, she's allowed because it's not in her hand. She cannot, basically stop the menses one go. She has to wait for that period. Whereas the person who is in sexually defiled, you just go to the shower and have a ghusl. That's it. It's become pure. So touching the Quran, we said, is allowed whenever she needs it, because half of the women, she cannot wait for 6-7 days without memorizing the Quran. She cannot. She'll forget it. Some of the women, they start every 5 days they finish the Quran. So they have to, by somehow, to touch the Quran. But you could minimize touching the Quran if she wishes to use the mobile. Mobile is not Quran. So she could use that as well. Okay. But to make a hassle for her to go and put gloves and then use a piece of stick to flick the Quran, she might damage the Quran. That is, we don't really go to that extreme. But the one who is on sexually defiled, he must have what? Purity. Make ghusl. Why are you doing? Just make ghusl and touch the Quran. Right. So we said prayer, and also that is, so as for the Quran touching is not correct. So the prayer. Right. So the prayer is not allowed. Now also we're going to add
fasting. She must make up the fast after she becomes pure.
But we have added before, if you remember, when we talked about janaba, we added something. Somebody who's not pure, he cannot do something. Tawaf, well done. Tawaf. So the menstruating women, she cannot make tawaf. Postnatal women, she cannot make tawaf. You might find a fatwa of Shaykh Islam Samiyah where he said that if the woman, she was extremely being pushed and her people are going to leave her, she has to make her umrah or hajj, and the only thing is left is tawaf, then she can do it while she's on her menses. This fatwa has been dealt by the scholar. They said it's not correct. We cannot really push her to do that. She has to wait. Imagine that woman, she had a broken leg. Would she go and leave, or she stays in the hospital until she's cured? Same thing for her menses. She has to wait until her menses is finished, and then she will do her hajj, her tawaf, regardless of that. A mahram of hers is going to stay with her, and maybe add money to the ticket. It doesn't matter, but he has to wait until she's cleansed. So we say tawaf, And also Shaykh Al-Albani adds something else, which is sa'i. And that's a controversial, very controversial. Tawaf is not controversial as much. Sa'i between Safa and Marwa. The reason behind this, Allah called the tawaf in the Quran, the sa'i in the Quran, tawaf. وَلْيَطَّوَّفَ بِهِمَا, he said. And lets you make tawaf between Safa and Marwa. So he called it tawaf. So he is, according to this Quranic word, فَمَنْ حَجَّ الْبَيْتَ وَاعْتَمَرَ فَلَا جُنَاحَ عَلَيْهِ أَن يَطَّوَّفَ بِهِمَا. Make it tawaf. So because of that common word, he had said that it is as well needed to be not on her menses. And that's a very controversial, as I said. But I'm just giving you what the scholars have said. So we say now what is prohibited upon the women on menses and women who are on postnatal. Number one, prayer. She cannot pray. That's consensus. Number two, tawaf. And that is almost consensus. Number three, sa'i and marwa, very controversial. Now we're going to add the following. Number one.
Okay, fasting. She must make up the fast after she becomes pure. Mu'adha said, I asked Aisha, anha, why does a menstruating woman make up the fast but not her prayers? She replied, we experienced these things during the time of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu, and he ordered us to make up our fast, and he did not order us to make up our prayers.
Right, so this is number four now. So we said prayer, tawaf, sa'i, forbidden as well, fasting. Please go to that page number 2 on your handout. In the middle, it says there, forbidden acts during menstruation or post-childbirth bleeding. Prayer. And it says here, she does not make up for missed prayer. Tawaf, sa'i, and then fasting. Once she is pure, she must make up for the obligatory days she missed unless she was breastfeeding. Then she has a choice of either fasting or paying a ransom. Meaning, if she is to be a woman breastfeeding, and there is some days from Ramadan, then some of the scholars said, because of her breastfeeding, she is allowed to give a ransom, meaning to feed the poor people for each day that she breaks the fast. But the fast she compensates. This woman, Mu'adha, radiallahu anha, she asked Aisha. Another narration, Aisha, she said, Ahawruriyatun anti, are you from the Khawarij? Why are you asking this question? Prophet of Allah, during our menses, when it is to do with the fast, he asks us to compensate. And it's to do with the prayer, he does not tell us to compensate. So we're not allowed to compensate for the 7 days that we missed the prayers. It's going to be difficult anyway for her. But the fast, she has to make up for the obligatory fast. Number 5. No, number 2, sorry. What?
Yeah, marital relations. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, they ask you concerning menstruation, say, that is an adha, a harmful thing for a husband to have marital relations with his wife while she is having her menses. Therefore keep away from women during menses and go not unto them until they have purified from menses and have taken a bath. And when they have purified themselves, then go in unto them as Allah has ordained for you. Surah Baqarah, verse 222. Concerning this issue, the Prophet ﷺ said, you may do everything with a menstruating woman except for the marital relations.
Except for the intercourse. 5. So we go to point number 5 there on your sheet. It says marital relations. Everything is allowed except for the sexual intercourse. Bluntly, in the penetration. Now, Prophet ﷺ, normally it is the case whenever he wants to make a marital relationship with his wife, when she's on her menses, he would put a cover onto her private part, and everything is allowed for him. But it doesn't mean that you have to put that cover. It's just to make sure that you're not going to make an intercourse, because he made an intercourse with the woman in her menses. That is a major sin. That is a major grave sin, as we're going to see, inshallah, in the notes. So it's a major sin. You're not allowed to basically make the intercourse while she's in her menses. Other than that, it's allowed. So whether you put a piece of cloth or not, the piece of cloth is just to make sure. Right. Now, we have added something to your notes, which is not there. And that is what is not allowed during menses or post-childbirth bleeding. It's actually, this one is for menses. Number 6, divorce. A man cannot divorce his wife during her menses. And this is called the bid'i talaq. Bid'i means innovated. Bid'i talaq, there's a word for it, an expression. So divorce is prohibited to divorce during menstruation. This is point number 6. That point. During menstruation period until the menses stops. The after ghusl is not required. So if she had stopped the menstruation, and she did not have the ghusl yet, it doesn't matter, you could divorce her. Okay? Now, this is called bid'i divorce, and if it took place, it will be counted. And that's a controversial. So if you made a divorce during the menses, is it counted? Going to be not counted for one of your 3 divorces. Is it counted or not? Corrected period, it is counted. It's with Abdullah ibn Umar. He counted it for him. The Prophet of Allah is one. Abdullah ibn Umar, he divorced his wife when she was in her menses. When he was asked, the Prophet about this, he said, go and command him to go back to her. And it will be counted. So Abdullah ibn Umar, it was counted upon me. So you have to bring her back as a wife. So if she is first time divorce, this divorce will be counted 1. You have to bring her back. Now this says here, then you decide whether you want to carry on to divorce her. That will be counted another 1, 2nd. Or you don't want to, so you have to bring her back because it's bid'i. And if you want to divorce her now, it will be counted 2. So if you've already made 2 divorces, and this is the 3rd one, okay, you have made a bid'i divorce, so you made a sin, but you can't bring her back. Do you understand? If you made already 2, so the 3rd one, you made it in the menses, it will be counted. But in this case, you cannot bring her back because she's what? 3 divorces, and if she's 3 divorced, you're not allowed to go back to her until she marries somebody else and that person divorces her or he dies, then she could go back with 3 fresh divorces. Okay? So you're not allowed to divorce during the menses. As if she's in her postnatal, no problem. Because if she is on her postnatal, or if she is pregnant, you could divorce her, no problem. So you could divorce a woman in her pregnancy, you could divorce a woman on her postnatal, which is the blood that comes after the child's birth, no problem in that whatsoever. Fine. Now we come into he who does approach a woman when she's on her menses. Fadl.
And Nawawi wrote in his commentary to Sahih Muslim, if a Muslim believes it's permissible to have intercourse with a menstruating woman, he becomes a disbelieving apostate.
Okay, any person who does believe something which Allah or His Messenger made to be haram, it is to be halal, he's a kafir. So if you have believed drinking wine is halal, even if you don't drink wine, you are what? A kafir. So a person who is a Muslim drinking wine, knowing it's haram, and he drinks as much as he wants and he gets drunk, he's still a Muslim. And a person who does not drink even a drop of alcohol, but he says, no problem, halal to drink alcohol is what? Kafir. Do you understand that? So if you said alcohol is halal, you're a kafir. Because you made something which is haram to be halal. Or if you made something halal to be haram, you're a kafir. Even if you don't practice it. But if a person knows it is haram, he's out because of his weakness, because of his iman dropping down, and he drinks, then he is a sinner. He is a sinner. And now we're not allowed even to curse him. One person is called Abdullah. His kunya is Himar, donkey. He used to be brought to the Prophet ﷺ so many times, drunk. Some of the companions used to beat him up. One person, when he was brought again and the Prophet lashed him, he said, may Allah curse you. How many times you came here to the Prophet of Allah? So the Prophet of Allah told him off. Don't curse him. He loves Allah and His Messenger. So if he is drunk, he loves Allah and His Messenger. He's a sinner. He's not a kafir. So he's making major sin, but it doesn't mean he's a kafir. So he said, don't curse him. And he used to love Allah and His Messenger. He's the one who used to bring the Prophet of Allah the smile, make him laugh. Okay. So here we say that any person who believes coming and approaching to his wife is halal, he is a kafir. Fadl.
If he commits such an act while not believing it's permissible, but out of forgetfulness, ignorant that she was having her menses, ignorant that it's forbidden or being coerced to do so, then there is no sin or expiation due from him. But if he did so intentionally, knowing that she was menstruating, knowing that it's forbidden and out of choice, then he's committed a major sin. Al-Shafi'i explicitly stated that it is a major sin. It's a must that he repents, and there are two opinions as to whether he must expiate for that act or not. The stronger opinion is that the expiation is obligatory. This is based on the hadith narrated by Ibn Abbas from the Prophet ﷺ, who said concerning a man who had intercourse with his menstruating wife, he is to give a dinar or half a dinar in charity.
Right. You finished the one?
The option stated in the hadith is related to whether the act occurred in the first days of the menses or in the later days. It's narrated that Ibn Abbas said, if he had relations with her at the beginning of the days of bleeding, then he is to give a dinar. If it were toward the end of the days of bleeding, then he gives half a dinar.
Right. If you look at page number 2 of your handout, point number 4 says, if intercourse was performed intentionally during menstruation or post-childbirth bleeding, knowing that it is forbidden, and by his own choice, that he's not being forced, he's not being coerced, then he has committed a grave, major sin for which he must repent. Repentance must. Also, expiation is required of an equivalent of 1 dinar or half a dinar. What is 1 dinar and what is half a dinar? We don't have dinars now, we have pounds. Dinar is equivalent to 4.25 grams of 24 carats of gold. Dinar is equivalent, so you have to give money, which is equivalent to 4.25 grams of 24 carats. This is an application, so says the commodities or gold price. It will tell you how much is the price of the gold now for each gram. It's about, I don't know, maybe 40 pounds, I can't remember. Maybe it's 40 pounds, so you need about to pay 170, 180 pounds as an expiation for that. Or half a dinar, which is half of that money. Now, what is the right opinion regarding when do you give half or 1? Here, Abdullah ibn Abbas, what he said, if you've done it at the beginning of the menstruation, is different from the end of the menstruation. Okay, so if the beginning of the menstruation, you have no patience, why did you approach her? So full dinar. And if it's at the end, that means you've been patient all these 6-7 days, but the last bit you couldn't hold yourself, that's why you pay half dinar. But the correct opinion is actually according to your circumstances. And that's from Abdullah ibn Abbas himself, different. So we say it is according, if you are able, rich, pay half, full dinar. Now remember, this person is not saying it is halal to approach his wife during the menses or the postnatal. No, but he couldn't hold himself. He's a sinner. It's like the person who drinks wine and uses haram. It's different from the person who says halal. That's kafir. Okay? So this person, he knows it's haram. And he's not doing it because he forgot or he's being coerced. No. He knows it's haram and he remembers, but he couldn't hold himself. He's a major sin. But also you have to repent. On top of the repentance, there is what? Compensation, which is called expiation. 1 dinar, about 200 pounds, let's say, when you are rich. 100 pounds if you are poor. Wallahu a'lam. We go to the following point, please.
Okay, istihada.
Istihada. I'll stop here. Istihada, inshallah, we'll just go now to the points of hour. We need to finish abnormal cases because this is where these things that are needed. So we go to page number 1, please. There's 2 things here. I said signs by which women can determine if she's on her menses, and signs by which the woman can determine that her menses stopped. So in the middle of the page, there's signs by which the woman can determine if she is on her menses. Number 1, the time and the date. Which part of the month? Is it the beginning, the middle? She knows. Okay, she knows. Number 2, the blood's characteristics. Black, thick, smelly. Number 3, the consideration of the predominant customary period of the woman. If, for example, she is the first time for her to menstruate, or she forgot when she menstruates, something had happened to her brain, she lost it, or she had period of stoppage for a long time because of pregnancy and then breastfeeding pregnancy, and then suddenly she started to menstruate, and she's going blood gushing all over the place and all the time. It means non-stop. How can she determine to consider? We say, and how much days? We say the predominant. How much is the predominant? 6 to 7 days. Fine. Signs by which the women can determine that the menstruation stopped? Number one, seeing the white cotton. That means she put a white cotton in her private part and she sees that there is no blood there, or the blood stopped flowing. That's what it means. Number two, the change in characteristics of the blood. You know, the blood starts dark, then goes to fading color. Fading in color. So it goes to yellow, then muddy, then after that to white. Well, so first black, dark, and then dark red, and then it goes to, after the red, yellow, and then I said muddy. Yellow means pussy, pus, called the pus color, and also then after that the muddy. Then we say here, the third point, it says the time and date on which regularly finished. So she knows when she starts and when she finishes. And the last point, consideration of the predominant customary period. This woman, as I said, she forgot. It's the first time maybe for her to menstruate. Then we will say that the customary period. So she's the first time to menstruate, and she's keep blooding, keep doing the blood for a long, long time. 6 to 7 days. That's her customary period. Right, abnormal cases. This is where we have women experiencing something odd. How can we treat it? Number one, if yellow or muddy, this is part of the blood color of the menses, comes out during the days of menstruation, then she's considered in her menses. This is part of her menses. Otherwise, listen to this, it is not. And it does not break your wudu. But because I think we've been asked this before, muddy color, or any secretion that comes out of the women, okay, apart from the urine, it's not going to break her wudu. Do you understand me? Secretion, it does not break her wudu. So any liquid comes on, does not break the wudu. There's no proof. So if there's a muddy or yellowish color, pus color, comes out during the menses time, it's for part of the menses. During outside the menses time, it's not menses and does not break the wudu. Number two, sometimes delays in the discharge of menses blood might take place. So there's a delay. So for example, let's say it comes at the beginning of the month, but it didn't. Therefore, the woman should disregard any pain that might accompany such delay and should not consider herself on her menses until she sees the actual blood flowing. So at the beginning of the month, she's experiencing the pain. The woman is experiencing pain just before the period, just during the period. She cannot consider herself on her menses until the what? She sees the blood. Not just to, I feel I've got the headache. Some of them get a headache. Some of them, they get pains. They really get sick. Some of them, depending. Some of them get nothing. They don't really feel anything. But if they got this pain, it does not mean that she's on her menses. Even if it's the time of their menses until she sees what? The discharge of the blood. Point number three. The length of the time of the menstruation period may vary in some cases. In such case, the woman should watch for the end of it. Let's say, for example, usually it is 6 to 7 days. This time, it's actually didn't finish 7 days, but she could see that it's going to the end. Maybe 8 days, it could be 9 days. She could see that it's fading in color. So she should really watch for the end of the blood discharge. Number four. In the case of blood being discharged as drops and stopping on the following day, the woman, she should look for the sign that determines whether she's on her menses or not. Some women, at the beginning of her period, she has 1 drop. And the following day, maybe another drop. She's still on her period because this is her time, where her period is. Sometimes she's got 1 blood and then 3-4 days, no blood. And then the 5th day, which is within her period, have another blood. Still, she is not allowed to pray. She's in her menses. Okay? That's abnormal cases. Right. Point number 5. If this is the first time for the girl to have her menstruation, then she should watch for the blood's characteristics. Dark, smelly, thick. Otherwise, she should consider the predominant customary period 6 to 7 days. Right. Now we're coming to the postnatal abnormal cases. Abnormal cases during post-child, which is during when the child is born and there's blood there. Number 1, if the blood stopped flowing within the 40 days after that. So we said the maximum for the blood of the postnatal is what? 40 days. If that blood stopped within the 40 days, then started flowing again before the 40 days, then this is, by the way, this is still considered postnatal. So she had stopped on the 25th day. She thought she's clean. She started making up for the fast and doing prayer. On the 39th day, blood came back again. All these days that she made her fast or she prayed is invalid. Do you understand what I'm saying? Again, if this woman had to stop her blood after her birth, the 25th day, and she had the blood again coming to her when it was 39 days before the 40 days, then whatever she had made during that period from ibadah is what? Is null, is nullified. So she made up for fast. Sorry, the fast is not going to be counted. She has to make up for the fast. She had to make prayer, the prayer is not invalid anyway. Fine. Can I just ask for the heater to be switched off? Can we do that? Huh? What's that?
That's just a preparation.
Is it? I'm sweating.
No. That's for the ventilation.
Oh, is it? I'm just sweating. SubhanAllah. Can I take off?
No,
It's really hot. It's really hot. Maybe just put me there.
AC in the winter.
Yeah, I'm really hot. I'm sweating. Wallah, I'm sweating. I hate the heat. Fine. Now the other way around. If this woman, she had stopped her postnatal blood within the 40 days and the blood restarted after the 40 days, no problem. That means what? Her prayer and her fast is valid. So if she stopped, let's say the 10th day, she started praying, she started fasting, and the blood started again after the finish of the 40 days, no problem. Her prayer, mashallah, I love this. Boy, I'm back again to life. Oh, mashallah, tabarakallah. Alhamdulillah. You know, you people, because I talk, I get all heated up. Fine. Jazakumullah khair. So basically the women, if she had her blood started after the 40 days, no problem. Fine. This is point number what? Number 2. Number 3, if the blood kept flowing for more than 40 days, then she should disregard this blood. So the blood after 40 days, disregard this blood. But if that excessive blood coincides with the timing of her menses, then she should wait until he finishes the days of her period. Do you understand that? So let's say, for example, her period, her menses starts on the beginning of the month. She had given birth, 40 days before that date. 40 days before that date. She kept bleeding. When the end of the 40 days, it was the start of what? Of her menses. So she should add the menses days to the what? To the postnatal. It becomes like 47, 48, 49, whatever it is. But alhamdulillah, that is tackled now. Finish this. Now we're coming here to but after that, 2 titles is the following acts are permissible during menstruation and post-childbirth leave. Number 1, entering and staying in the masjid. No problem for a woman to come to the masjid and stay even on her menses. Yes, preferably if she's pure, but it doesn't mean that she has to make sure that her blood is in check. Number 2, prostration for tilawa or gratitude is permissible because not salah. So if she had heard a verse or she recited a verse containing tilawa, she prostrates. She had heard some good news, she prostrates, sign of thankfulness. No problem. It's not a salah. And we have the hadith regarding Abdullah ibn Abbas and Abdullah ibn Umar. Reciting the Quran. And by the way, prostration of tilawa on shukr doesn't need even wudu. Nothing. Reciting the Quran, touching it, also permissible if she needs to do so. Performing ihram and stopping at Arafah. How has she done that? She done all the things. The Prophet ﷺ told Aisha when she was in her menses, do everything that the Haji does except for prayer and tawaf. Except for what? Prayer and tawaf. So she went making her adhkar, she went into Arafah and she started making the dua of Arafah. Everything except for tawaf. And tawaf, Sheikh al-Albani says, includes the sa'i. Now, you would say, well, what about fasting? Prophet did not say to her as well fasting, because fasting is not from the acts of the Hajj. Hajj does what? Pray and tawaf and stay on Arafah. It's not fast. So fast is not allowed. Like says here, the useful points during menstruation or post childbirth leave. This is the last thing we're going to handle. We're going to leave istihada, inshallah, for next time. So you can give me the question and answers. Useful points during menstruation or post childbirth leave. Please, let's just get it together because there are plenty. Number one, women are obligated to inform their husband about the start and the end of their menstruation. Why? For two reasons. For intercourse and for divorce. You cannot divorce her while she's in her menses. Okay? She has to tell. Now, it's obligatory. Number two, no marital relation is allowed until she performs the ghusl after menstruation or the post-childbirth bleeding stops. So if her menses stops, it's not allowed for you to intercourse until she what? She has a ghusl. حتى يتطهرن. That means they will gain tahar, not just hatta yadhurn when the menses stops. No. She has to make sure that she's on her. So, and by the way, even the ghusl plays a big role regarding the end of the divorce period. Okay, when the person divorces his wife, the first divorce, she's still his wife for 3 menses, isn't it? If she's got cycle, 3 months. If she's menstruating, 3 cycles. She's still his wife, not just until the 3rd cycle finishes, until she has the ghusl after the 3rd cycle. Do you understand what I'm saying? So let's say that this person divorces her. She's still his wife. She still inherits him as well and inherits her as well. So she wants to go back to her husband. She's keen, and she's telling him, by the way, my 3rd cycle is finished. Now it's finished, but she wants to delay a bit her what? Her ghusl. Let's say she had stopped her cycle after sunrise. She's got until Dhuhr. So she wants to give more time to the husband. Maybe he would think, bring her back, because otherwise she'll be what? Stranger. If you want to marry her again, he has to be new dowry and a new nikah and 2 witnesses and all of that. But she's still his wife in that period. So she is still his wife until she what? She has what? Has ghusl. You got a hand up?
No.
Good. You have your hand up?
But no,
Alhamdulillah.
Was that one talaq?
Yeah, the first talaq, second talaq, it doesn't matter. As long as it's not the 3rd talaq. 3rd talaq is finished.
1 talaq and 3 cycles.
Yeah, the first talaq, 3 cycles, second talaq, 3 cycles. If you want to refer to more talaq, I think I've got some courses called marriage course, but it's very important what I will do with marriage. So when we come to this book, we will talk about as well talaq and divorce and marriage as well. Fine. I'm not training you here to make talaq, but
No.
second point. No marital relation is allowed until she performs ghusl after menstruation. No marital relation is allowed. Thirdly, if marital relation took place accidentally during menstruation or during the PCBB, due to ignorance, forgetfulness, not knowing that his wife was menstruating forced, then there is no sin or expiation to him. We've said that before. Number 4, if intercourse was performed intentionally, we've said that as well, mentioned it. Number 5, if the child was born through a cesarean and there was discharge of blood, but not from the vagina, then this blood is not considered PCBB. Do you understand that? If she had a cesarean and no blood coming from the vagina, it's only blood coming from the belly. No, she's not on her menses. She's not on her postnatal, so sorry. 5. Number 6. Is there any doctor that women, she would have a cesarean, she will have no blood coming out from the vagina? Would that be true?
It's unusual.
It's unusual, yes. Number 6. If women performs ghusl, that's on the 3rd page at the top. If women, I tell you what, I'll give you what better than yours. No, but yours is really can't see it. Look at that. I've done it very well. Yeah. If women performs ghusl after finishing her menses, she must undo her plaited hair. Remember that? If she is finished her ghusl. You could really switch off now the Sheikh, the EC, because he froze. The doctor froze. he's shivering now. So if the woman performs ghusl after finishing her menses, she has to undo what? Her plaited hair. If it's to do for janaba, no, she doesn't have to do it. Number 7, it is recommended for a woman when she performs the ghusl after menstruation to take some cotton smeared with musk or perfume and wipes over the traces of blood. Number 8, to wash the menstruation from the clothes, use water, detergent. All of that has been discussed in the ghusl, how to wash your clothes. Rub, scrub, and then sprinkle water on the whole underwear, garment. After this, if any trace is still there, there's no problem. Number 9, it is permissible but not advised for women to take some medicine to delay her menses for the sake of performing Hajj or fasting. This medicine should not have any serious side effects on her. You know, you women, they go, for example, Ramadan, they don't want to, have their cycle, which is not advisable. She should be natural. When her menses, come, she stops. Why should she should really go and take pills to push her menses outside Ramadan? It's not correct. Even in Hajj. But maybe because of the Hajj package, it's limited. So if she does take these pills to delay her menses, believe me, she's going to mess up her menses. She will later on start bleeding all over the place, all over the time. And she's going to ask, Sheikh, is this blood or not? I'm not going to go and see it. I'm not going to check up on this blood. Is this menses or not? None of these women, they ask. I've been experienced too much blood and I don't want to go and look at this blood. And it's a problem. Why? Because she had taken these pills. These pills, this totally destroy the cycle. True or not, doctor? Yes. I'm just always having confirmation from the doctor. Point number 10. It is permissible for a woman on her menses to wash the head of her husband. Aisha is to wash her husband. It is permissible to eat and drink with the wife having menstruation, and also read Quran with your head on her lap. It means next to her private part. Do you understand me? On her lap. Prophet of Allah did that. And this is very important. They think, oh, I'm next to the najasa, impurity. No, it's not correct. Prophet used to recite Quran while his head on the lap of Aisha while she's in her menses. Right. It is now point number 12. It is recommended upon menstruation women to witness the Eid. Yes, to come to the Eid, even though she does not pray, to listen to the khutbah, participate in the festivals. Point number 13 and 14, very important, Ikhwani. I think I would circle them. I'm going to put them even in the front, 13 and 14. If the menstruation or the post-childbirth bleeding started after the prayer time has commenced and she did not pray that particular prayer, then she must perform it once finishing her menstruation. So let's say that the dhuhr started. She did not pray her dhuhr. Suddenly the menses came. She can't pray. She has to pray this dhuhr prayer. It's still a debt on her. Once she gets what? Cleanse. Once her menses stops. Point number 14. If the menstruation to stop before Maghrib, then she must perform dhuhr and asr. And that's Hadith Abdullah ibn Abbas. Hadith Abdurrahman ibn Auf. Then it says, if it stops before midnight, then she must do Maghrib and Isha. If it stops before Maghrib, before Dhuhr and Asr, before midnight, Maghrib and Isha. So if her menses stopped just after Isha, she has to do what? Maghrib and Isha. If she stopped her before Asr, before Maghrib, she has to do what? Dhuhr and Asr. That means just after Asr, Dhuhr and Asr. This is not to do with as well when she started. If she had started Dhuhr and she missed the Dhuhr, she did not do the Dhuhr and menstruation came, then she has to do Dhuhr as well, the one that she had left before that. If her menses started before Dhuhr, no problem. Khalas, there's no prayer on her. Okay? Alhamdulillah. 15. Fasting is invalid once woman has menses, even if it took place just before Maghrib. So let's say she's fasting just before Maghrib, before sunset. One drop of the blood of the menses came out. She's what? She's in her menses. Her day is what? Invalid. She has to compensate for Ramadan. Okay? And also point number 16, that if this blood did not stop until after dawn, she cannot fast the day. So she had menses kept going on, and that dropping of the blood still after Fajr, just about 1 minute after dawn appeared, she cannot fast that day. She has to be what? Cleansed, no blood before Fajr and after Fajr and before Maghrib. So between Fajr and Maghrib, she has to have no blood for that day to be accepted. Finally, point number 16. If the menstruation stopped before dawn, yeah, we've done that. The 17. When the woman stops fasting in Ramadan due to her menstruation or the post-childbirth bleeding, she should pay attention not to break her fasting in front of her young children, as it might confuse them. Little children, they don't know. You tell them to fast and you are not fasting. They don't understand you are on your menses and you cannot fast. So be careful not to really break your fast before them. Wallahu ta'ala. Then inshallah we'll discuss in 2 weeks' time prolonged period istihada. If you have any questions, priority goes to the sisters, by the way. Right, any questions, please? Jazakumullah. Tafadhal. What is the statement of Imam Shafi'i? What? Statement of Imam Shafi'i. Isn't it this here in the book? You haven't got the book. Oh, you just got the book, inshallah. Imam Shafi'i, he says that it's a major sin and you should repent. And in terms of the kafara, the expiation, there are two sayings. Now, Fadal. Yes, Moy.
If someone has done the 40 days of post
If somebody
has done the 40 days of bleeding,
if the woman, she made the 40 days of the
after bleeding, and then
after the childbirth, even.
and then she carries on. Okay. I mean, it's still coming out, and she's obviously praying and stuff like that. But in the najasa, like on I know they've been pads and stuff, but it's in the najasa.
No. This is coming, inshallah, the section of prolonged period. It's called prolonged period. Prolonged period, the blood is pure.
Oh, it's pure itself.
Yeah, it's pure. But when we say it's pure, it doesn't mean that it's good for her to leave herself dripping onto the carpets and all of that. Still, I mean, mucus is pure, isn't it? But you like to have mucus and phlegm and disgusting. It's pure, okay, but she has to commence on her prayer after the 40 days, unless it synchronizes with her menses time. Now, Jazakallah. Any questions? Okay, let's just have the sisters. You have questions?
Yeah, when she prays the Dhuhr and Asr or Maghrib and Isha, depending when she finishes, what order should
she always does the order of the prayer. So the question is, if she had stopped her menses before Maghrib, that means after Asr, she does Dhuhr first and then Asr, always in the order. And if she had lost the prayer before she commenced the menses, then that prayer starts first. So let's say that she had menses after Dhuhr started. She didn't do Dhuhr. So she will start with Dhuhr. And she also stopped her menses after Asr. She will do Dhuhr for the one she missed, and Dhuhr and Asr for the one which she is now the one because she stopped. Do you understand what I'm saying? Again, if this woman started her menses after Dhuhr and she hasn't prayed her Dhuhr, and her menses stopped after Asr, okay, she does the following prayers. First, the Dhuhr that she missed at the beginning. Secondly, the Dhuhr because she stopped after Asr, and then the Asr. Okay, now.
What is the time is that finished? Asr.
Okay, so this person is our brother. Let's say that she had stopped her blood just before Maghrib. Is that what you're saying? The end of the Asr. Is that still, even if it's just a moment before sunset, she does. It doesn't mean she has to do it within that time, but she has to do it because she's been pushed. So she will do what we just said. Dhuhr, she had started, she left before, and Dhuhr and Asr, and maybe it could be now in the Maghrib time. No problem about that because her time will extend. Yeah, good question. Now,
So it's always in order.
Goes in order. Inna salata kanat ala al-mu'minina kitaban mawquta. Prayer is always time upon the believer. Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha. Fadl.
In the case of no water being available, is tayammum sufficient?
Sufficient. We said that tayammum, if the water is not available, with consensus, is make tayammum. And when you make tayammum for the woman, she's her menses, she doesn't have to put dirt onto her hair. It's tayammum, we said. Tayammum, what is it? Bismillah. Remember the intention, Bismillah. You strike. If there is dirt, heavy dirt, slight dirt, and then face, and then your hands. Finished. You are ready for your ibadah now. Any questions?
They're coming.
They're coming. طيب, تفضل.
How important is cutting nails and armpit and everything else?
How can I just see your mouth? I can't hear it.
Yeah, for that ghusl, is it how important to have cutting nail and armpit? And
For which ghusl? Any ghusl?
No, not any ghusl.
Ghusl for the menstruation?
Yeah.
Ghusl of the menstruation is not linked to any cutting of the nails of the hair or the underarm. Nothing to do with it. It's to do with cleansing. Nothing to do with it. Now,
Sorry, Sheikh, just to confirm, the rules for the menses and the post birth
the
bleeding,
PCBB.
yeah, post birth bleeding, the rules are all the same, as in what she's not allowed to do.
It's the same as not she's allowed to do, but except as it is for the divorce. You could divorce her when she's on her PCBB.
Okay.
Yeah, because we know that she was pregnant. But when her menses, we don't know if she's pregnant or not. That's why we cannot really divorce.
What if she wakes up at Fajr time? She doesn't have a menses coming. Maybe she does something and then half an hour later she realizes.
Same thing. If her Fajr time prayer if the Fajr prayer started and she did not do her Fajr, she delayed it. And by the way, this is a very important issue as well. That if the Fajr started or Dhuhr started or any prayer time started, and then the menses, it has to be that the menses started in a time that would be able for her to pray. So if the menses came only 1 minute after, there's no prayer on her. You understand me? It has to be the menses started so that there will be enough time for her to do the prayer. So maybe 5 minutes, 6 minutes, but not the first 1 minute or 2 minutes, because she's not going to be able to do the prayer. Okay, so it has to be a time for her. So if the Fajr started after 10 minutes, her menses came. She did not pray Fajr, she will do it once her menses stops. Now,
So, what if she realizes after iftar that she's been bleeding,
what about if she realized after iftar?
that she's bled? So she could have bled during the day, but she's not sure.
Okay, so she had basically, she fasted Ramadan, a day of Ramadan, already compulsory day to make up for the day of Ramadan. And then after she had broken her fast and everything, and she had eaten, she saw blood. She doesn't know if the blood came before or after. Now, if she cannot make up her mind, for example, because she's experienced in the bleeding, she will know if it's the first time when the blood comes really big, a lot. So she will know. If she can't know and determine, then it is better for her to repeat that day.
About the touching the Musaf, if she needs to, can you please define need?
Need means that she's in need to revise her revision, Quran. That's the need. So she needs to have the Quran all the time with her. And the need as well that she is in need of quoting some verses because she's teaching Quran to the kids or something like this. So she's in need to touch the Quran. There's no problem, inshallah. No. Need is, by the way, is not necessity. Necessity is a higher level. Need. Now.
Sorry, could you just very quickly list the differences of things you're not allowed to do between the menses and just being on janaba? What you're not allowed to do, the difference.
No, we said the janaba is, we said before, there's 3 things. Janaba prayer, you can't pray. But you could do make adhkar of Allah Azza wa Jal. You cannot as well make tawaf, and you cannot make sa'i. Those are the 3 things.
Touch the Musaf.
And we added to it, touching the Musaf. But recitation of the Quran is no problem. Now these 3, they are not allowed for the women who are on their menses and on their postnatal. As for touching the Quran, which is the one you said, no, we say that they are allowed to touch the Quran when it's needed. Okay? Then they add as well to it, which is intercourse, okay, and fasting. As fasting for janaba, no problem. So the person woke up on janaba in Ramadan, and he delayed his fast until his wash of the janaba until just before sunrise, and he made the fajr. No problem. To be on janaba now.
If the regular duration is, for example, 7 days, and for some reason it continues, should she go with her regular duration time?
That depends.
Or wait for the bleeding to stop?
It depends. How does she the blood? See the blood. So we had, for example, her menses 7 days. If that during the 7 days she could see that the blood is fading out, because it fades in color, she knows. That means it's going to come to stop, maybe an extra day. So she'll wait for the extra day. But if she sees that the blood is not really stopping, it's actually renewing, then she should disregard that blood. So she will decide. So if the blood is fading in color, then it's going to come to end. Doesn't matter if she has a day or 2 days or 3 days. But if that blood is flowing, the woman, she will know. And she sees now it's supposed to be fading out, but now it's renewing color and getting more, then she disregard that to be prolonged period. We're going to discuss that as well in the chapter of the prolonged period. 2 weeks time, inshallah.
Okay, inshallah. We'll stop the sister's question there.
Yes. طيب خير inshallah. The one which is here question, admin تفضل. Admin 3.
Okay, Sheikh, I've got quite a few sister questions here. The first one is just to clarify, the point of period ending is when you see something clear on white cloth or tissue. Cotton.
Yeah, meaning the woman, she would put cotton in her private part, and it comes out clear, that means the blood is stopped. Or just she knows the blood stopped, that's what it means.
Okay, if it is yellow, does that count as still being in one's period?
Of course.
Yeah. Okay, another question from a sister is, if a woman feels her menses is soon coming to an end, and the discharge is pale yellowish, should she make ghusl?
Again, the question is the same question before.
Yeah, it is actually. So I should have. I'm just reading these as they come up. So
yeah, go on.
If one thinks her menstruation cycle has ended and they take ghusl, however, after she sees a little blood discharge, does it require another ghusl?
No. If her menses stopped and she had her ghusl, that blood is we call it prolonged period. Because she's seen it stopped. But if it is on the same day, she's talking about the same day or the following day? If it's the same day, it's part of her period. And if that is, for example, yellowish or muddy, then we say part. That's why we say it's better to have a cotton where she could use it in her private part. She will see that it is clear or not. Further.
Okay. A sister has bleeding every month, even when pregnant, and she has been assuming that this has been her period for many years, as she has 6 kids, and it has happened in every pregnancy. Should we tell her that it is not period and she has to pray?
You must tell her. She's not allowed to not to pray. She has to pray and commence on her ibadah. There's no such thing, we said, that there is menses while you're pregnant. No.
Okay, and what should she do about her lost years?
If she didn't know and she was ignorant, and she basically asked somebody and the person told her that she's in her period, nothing on her. But if she did not ask, she will be sin for not asking. We say to her, repent to Allah and increase in praying voluntary. There's no such thing we're going to say to count the days when you were pregnant. That's going to be too much. No.
Okay. Does a person have to pay the compensation if he approaches his wife while she is clean, but when they finish, her menses are started?
No, he doesn't. He doesn't have to do anything. We said that if the person didn't realize that his wife, she's on her menses, there's nothing. So this person definitely doesn't know. He started with she's pure, and suddenly when he had finished, the blood had came out. He doesn't know. There's no expiation. Now.
Okay. Some women get spotting during their first trimester of pregnancy. Do they pray during this time, or is the blood considered like menstruation?
Spreading the first 12 weeks of the pregnancy. I think it's fine.
We said that during pregnancy, I mean, the question during pregnancy, there is no such thing as called menses. Okay.
Okay. So okay.
Khalas, finish the questions, please.
No, there's still quite a few sisters' questions here.
Quickly, please.
Are tampons allowed? In the past, the Sheikh said he did not know what tampons were. Perhaps a doctor can explain.
What's that? What's that?
Menstrual aids.
She said, what did you say with the word?
Tampons.
Tampons. I didn't understand that word, yes. But it's postnatal, isn't it? No? No, what's tampons then? The doctor explained. That's,
It's like cotton.
yes. Tampons like cotton. Okay, clear it. Right. So anything else? Is a question or just?
No, the question was, are they allowed?
I don't know how.
I don't know these tampons. They inserted inside the woman to stop the blood coming out.
Oh, to stop the blood, the menses come out, the postnatal.
Stop the blood.
But is
And then they remove
is it allowed as in medically speaking?
it. But Islamically, they ask.
Islamically, what? I mean, usually it is the case. The women, they will have like you know the nappies, the baby nappies. Okay, so she had her blood check. I don't know how she's gonna do it, but I don't know the tampons what they are. We don't want to insert tools inside. We want to have a heavy padded sort of cotton to stop the blood. So I don't know what is the tampon. I have to go and study it. So I'm not really sure what was that, but I'm sure there's pretty a lot of number of ways of stopping the blood. Other than this, isn't it? Yes, doctor is checking his head. But
Okay, Sheikh, there's a sister been waiting for a while on the chat, on the questions, Mariam Hong. I'll unmute her and she can ask the question if she so desires.
تفضل. يلا يا مريم Hong.
Mariam Hong, I've requested you to unmute yourself. So if you want to unmute yourself and ask the question, please do so.
Maybe she can't unmute herself.
Okay.
Assalamu
Salam alaikum.
alaikum. Sorry, I'm a Reva of 5 years, so there's so much I'm learning.
Are you Chinese?
I'm not Chinese, but my dad's stepdad is Chinese,
MashaAllah.
so I'm Vietnamese.
Vietnamese, yes. Tafadhal.
Yes, alhamdulillah. Can I just ask, because my periods have changed from like 7 days now to like 13 days after I put in the coil.
After you
So-
put what? After?
After I had my fourth child, I put in the
Fourth
coil.
child. So after your fourth child,
Yeah.
your period started from 7 to 13. Yeah, it does sometimes like this. No problem.
So is there a maximum number of days that your period can be? Because some people have told me 10
If you have
days.
joined from the beginning of the class, please just refer to the class. It says
Yeah, I
there's
missed
no
it,
minimum
sorry.
period. There's no
There's no
minimum period.
minimum.
No.
Oh, subhanallah. Okay. Okay,
Subhanallah.
jazakallah khair. And so the muddy part of the period is still the period, right? The
Yes,
muddy
it's still
end.
it's within the period time. It's still period, but after the period is finished, it's not to be
Thank
considered
you for
nothing.
clearing that up for me. Thank you, jazakallah khair.
Jazakumullah khair. Right. Any
Urgent question.
urgent questions? Fadal.
What if the bleeding stops and starts again a few days later? Is it still the menses? And should she do ghusl and pray in between?
So the blood stops and starts a few later. If it's within the period time, it's period. So let's say that her period is from the first day of the month to the 7th day of the month. First day was blood, and the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, there was no blood. The 7th day came blood, still her period. Yes.
But in hindsight, it's easy. But during the
Yeah.
issue, she doesn't pray.
She doesn't, of course, still her period, Ikhwani. I mean, the 7 days is her period. She's seen the blood, that's the start. Now, it doesn't matter if the blood disappeared. She's still on her menses. So it came the blood maybe the 6th day, still her menses.
So Sheikh, are you saying basically for clarity that if her period was 7 days and
She has to stay for 7 days.
she should just not
She
pray
stay for 7 days. She cannot pray for 7, as long as the blood is there, but the blood could stop in the middle.
So if the blood stops, should she stop praying again? Or
No,
should she
yeah,
not
Sheikh.
stop
Within
praying?
I mean, I made it clear, but you are making it confusing, please. They will confuse us. I said her period is 7 days, regardless of the blood is continuous or stopping and coming. Within the 7 days, it has to be no prayer, nothing. Okay, don't confuse yourself and confuse us with it.
There's
Almost.
one scenario though, Sheikh.
Go on.
This is
I think the scenario is with the men, not with the women.
No,
I don't know.
this is something you establish in hindsight. So
Good.
let's say the customary period is 7 days.
Okay,
Bleeding is 2 days. You
Yeah.
assume it's going to carry on for 7 days, but by the 7th day, nothing comes, and you think it's finished now. For those 5 days that there was nothing, That was still considered the period.
Okay, right. Normally it is the case. This doesn't happen, but it might have a blood later on the 8th. Yeah, but this is hypothetical. This is now, we say that normally it is the case is 7 days. There's no period of 1-2 days, but maybe there is abnormal cases.
Yeah.
So if, let's say, for example, that the first day of her 7 days, she came blood. We're going to assume now that the blood maybe comes on the 8th day. Her period becomes 8 days now. If there was no blood to come, then we will say to her, okay, compensate for those days. There's no blood whatsoever, okay, khalas. There's no blood. She's not experienced. Maybe her bleeding, it's hypothetical, is it? 2 days, it will be 2 days. So she will stop until the 7 days, but she will start compensating for those days for the prayer, and if there's a fast, then for the fast as well. But this is, as I said, very abnormal. Then the following month, she's going to be 2 days now, not 7 days. Normally it is the case, Ikhwani, 6 to 7 days. There's no such thing for a 20 days period or 2 days period. There's no such thing.
There are some conditions where you get very irregular bleeding, but I think we'll cover that next
Inshallah, bidnillah.
That's part of istihada.
جزاك الله استحاضة. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك جزاك الله خيرا. Too late,
Next 2 weeks time will be even more interesting.
Inshallah.
This is just the introduction. If they think this was complicated, istihada is even more questions.
This is running out of ink, isn't it?
Yeah, no, because I had to print.
That's yours.
I printed from my phone.
Go on, I'll give you one better. Look at this. Better than your father. Oh yes. You didn't have one?
I had one from on my laptop.
Okay.
Vic, do you want to end the class?
Huh?
End the Zoom class on the recording?
Oh yes. Jazakallah khairan. Barakallah.